go now, baby. We are right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Tuesday edition. Before you bet, Aaron live right here on the Covers YouTube and X channels. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you smash that like and that subscribe button right down there. So coming off a 2-in-1 day in the NBA yesterday, and we have a big NBA show planned for today. Only 4 games, but some pretty good betting opportunities here. I think we have 8 total bets. We have bets for all the games. We have some big plus money plays that we will be getting into. We'll do a little bit of a deep dive on these 4 games here tonight. A little under the weather, if you can't tell. A little bit of a cold. I think that week in New Orleans and traveling, being on airplanes and not sleeping 7-8 hours a night caught up to me, but I think we should be able to make her through. We're not exactly digging ditches here. We're here talking about NBA betting. If you guys want to participate in the show, very easy to do so. Hit up that live chat on YouTube, on X. Let us know. What do you like in the NBA here this evening? Game of the year yesterday, Nets and Hornets easily went under, so hopefully we can hit some easy ones tonight. RN in the live chat. Let's win like big dogs today. Yeah, I like that spirit. Big dogs, baby. Let's go. Okay, if we're talking NBA, you know who we're talking it with. Our guy, Jon Metler. Jon, any thoughts on Luka's debut as the Lakers easily covered that spread against the Jazz last night?
Yeah, I watched it. I do actually.
You're watching that? Wow, you know he's an NBA fan.
I was up watching it. It started really weird to me because I think you're trying to figure out, like, okay, how does Luka and LeBron, how do they coexist? Because obviously they're two, like, need the ball. And then I'm watching it. It's like Austin Reeves is bringing up the ball. And then Luka's standing in the corner and LeBron's standing in the other corner. And then LeBron and Luka both subbed out at the same time. They obviously have a lot of things to work through. You could also see, like, it didn't really get exposed because they're playing the Jazz. They killed the Jazz. But there's other times, too, like Luka was, like, standing up top, and I think Mavericks players would just know to, like, come set a pick and roll. It's what he wants, and he had to, like, keep motioning, like, hey, screen, like, here, like, I want it here. So it's going to be, like, a little clunky, and it's probably going to not look the best against better teams. There's some things to work out. In terms of, the Mavericks have basically come out and said they trade him because he wasn't in shape. There were, like, several plays, like, because I was really watching him because obviously you're, like, really dialed in on him. There were a lot of plays where, like, defensively, he's just, like, kind of reaching instead of, like, playing defense. So he can just kind of, like, reach and, like, get away. There's a couple, like, fast breaks where he's, like, not running. It's like a 2-on-1, it could be a 3-on-1, but he's like, it's a 2-on-1, you guys go. Or, like, there's a couple, like, weird things like that. And I was like, I thought he'd, like, kind of want to put that to bed a little bit and, like, and show a lot of effort. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm really intrigued to see how this does play out for both sides. So they have some things to work on. The Austin Reeves piece, they're gonna have to reset their minutes because NBA players are very, like, some players like to, like, play the first 5 minutes and they sit and then they bring in this guy. They have, like, very, like, distinct, like, rotations. So you have to figure that out with, like, is, like, Luka gonna play the whole first quarter and LeBron sits, like, 6-minute mark. They have to offset them, I think. So we'll see what the Lakers do.
Yeah, I'm still at a loss. The trade happened, 10 days ago now. I still think there's more to the story. We discussed that yesterday. No need to get into that today. But this Dallas Mavericks franchise is absolutely falling off of a cliff. I don't know if in the history of professional sports we've seen a franchise fall off like this. They, out of nowhere, they trade the guy who was supposed to be their superstar, their elite marquee guy for the next 10, 12 seasons. And obviously the fans aren't happy about it. And we're seeing this clip last night that fans were saying, fire Nico, the general manager. And they got kicked out of the arena. Did you see this?
It was like, okay, maybe you kick out the guys with signs. I still personally don't agree with it. But I saw one video, the guy, they just showed him on the Jumbotron, like, you're a random fan, and he just, like, mouthed, like, fire Nico Harrison, or maybe he was screaming out, but obviously there's no audio on the Jumbotron. And then they came and kicked him out. And I'm like, what? Like, if you just randomly cut to you on the Jumbotron, you're like, fire the GM, and then they come and kick you out of the arena. The Mavericks I think the Mavericks are quickly figuring out that this is not like NBA 2K. You can't just, like, make a trade and, like, there's no, like, repercussions from it, from, like, these are humans, these are fans, these are
season ticket holders. People pay a lot of money to go watch the games.
Like, even if the math is like, we might be Analytically, a little bit better with Anthony Davis and Max Christie. It's still, there was like way bigger pieces to like this happening and stuff. Like I don't know about you, but like when I come to like buying jerseys of like players on my favorite teams, there's like an element of like, I don't just like jump and like buy like a random jersey. It's like, I kind of think you're going to be a superstar for a long time. You're going to be there. And I feel like if I was a Mavericks fan, like you're kind of like committed to like Luka Doncic, like jerseys, like maybe you collect cards, you're collecting Luka Doncic cards. Like you think he's going to be a Maverick for 15 years, right?
I've been trying to buy a Miami Dolphins jersey for the past 15 years, and there hasn't been a standout player where I can be like, okay, this is the guy who's going to go to the Hall of Fame for them. But I could see if the fans were doing something vulgar, if they were swearing, giving the finger or something like that. Okay, boot them out. I guess that kind of makes sense. But talk about turning off a fan base. If I'm a fan of that team, I'm boycotting. I mean, if you're a season ticket holder, you're pretty much stuck with the tickets.
They offered refunds.
For the season?
After the trade, they were offering refunds to fans who were upset who has season tickets. Which if you make a trade that you feel like you need to offer refunds for your season ticket holders, like isn't that like a red flag to like the whole trade? They went to the NBA Finals.
They were in the finals last year. Yes.
It's such
and Anthony Davis is now out for like this could not have gone any worse. Like the fallout for Anthony Davis is already out for a month now. This is just a complete and total disaster. And if they do not make the playoffs, that's really bad. So I think that franchise is about to go the way of the Wizards or the Hornets, but uglier because they had Luka and they decided to trade him, which is insane. It's different if he leaves in free agency, but they traded the guy. Okay, John, so we got 4 games here tonight. Some kind of good looking matchups. They don't always have to be pretty looking matchups, but you can have some pretty looking betting opportunities. So let's jump right into these. Let's start with this Raptors-Sixers game. Sixers are favored by 9, total of 225. Surprise, surprise, Joel Embiid is questionable to play. It's the first game of a back-to-back. They play in Brooklyn tomorrow, so I would kind of expect him to play in front of the home fans. Who knows, though, what's going on injury-wise. For what it's worth, though, the Sixers are 8-8 with Embiid in the lineup. I thought that they would be a little bit better at 12-24 without him. Both teams on losing streaks here. The Raptors have lost 4 straight games. All the good teams, though, Knicks, Grizzlies, Thunder, Rockets. Phillies lost 5 out of 6. Both teams are solid over bets lately, so it can be tricky to make a bet on the game if you don't know if Embiid's going to play. Given what the spread is here, and with this being a home game and the game tomorrow being on the road, I do expect him to play. Now, all that said, I'm going to back the Toronto Raptors in the first half, plus 5.5 in the first half of this game. And the Raptors have been a really good first half bet. I don't care about what happens in the second half. This is a nice chunk of points here in the first half. So they are 9-1 in the first half in their last 10 road games. Overall, 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 first halves. If you look at the stats here, full game stats over the last 10 games, not really a whole lot separating these teams statistically, 14th versus 16th in net rating. But if you pinpoint it to just the first half of the game, massive gap defensively favoring the Raptors. I think the Raptors defense can keep this one close in the opening half. First versus 28th in first half defensive rating over the last 10 games. So I like Toronto to keep it close here in the first half. Any thoughts on this game, John?
Yeah, I was kind of trying to figure out like is he going to play today or tomorrow? It does feel like that 9-point spread is leaning. It's a lot more closer to Embiid playing tonight. If he's out, there's an edge on the Raptors at that 9-point spread. Obviously, it'll move really fast. And also, if he's out, it creates like a huge bailout from, Jakob Poeltl is out for the Raptors, but Andre Drummond's also playing Sixers, so Yabusele would play the 5. He's 6'7". Raptors wouldn't get exposed on the fact that Poeltl would be out. They could go undersized as well. So if he's out, that's a huge swing towards the Raptors. I feel like it makes more sense. The 9-point spread tells me he's probably playing tonight because that's basically where the spread should be if Embiid's playing. But I thought it made more sense. They played Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that he would sit this one and then like have the 2 days off and play the Nets and then go into the All-Star break. That would be like the maximum amount of rest.
Sure.
Doesn't make much sense to have the 1 day off, play the next game, and then take an early All-Star break. But I mean, nothing really makes sense with what he does anyway. So
Yeah, that
Yeah.
team's in trouble. The Paul George signing has not worked out for that team
No.
either. An absolute mess of a team right now.
We-
Nick Nurse not doing a good job.
You took the words right out of my mouth because we kind of called them out earlier in the year where like at some point you need to win with who's on the floor. Like their last 2 games here, I had them on the money line against the Pistons and I was pretty pumped because I jumped in front of it before Cade Cunningham was ruled out. Then they lose. And then on Sunday, they're playing the Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo is not playing and they lose to the Bucks on like and they had their guys, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, they're all playing. So I don't know, man. I think City of Philadelphia might have sacrificed the 76ers for an Eagles Super Bowl.
Yeah. If you're a fan of both teams, you'll take the Super Bowl and take in exchange for a disgrace of a team in the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, next up, I think the game of the night here in Indiana, one of the good rivalries in the Eastern Conference with the Knicks in town to take on the Pacers. The Pacers are a 2.5-point dog. Total on the high end, no shock, 240.5. So both of these teams are coming off a loss. And this has been a decent spot ATS for both of these teams lately. So that trend is a little bit of a wash. They're both going to be motivated coming off of a loss. Both teams are trending towards the over. Pacers have kind of had their Knicks number when the Knicks come to town. Not kind of, they have. They've won 5 straight home games against the Knicks. However, the Knicks on the road playing really well. 11-2 straight up in their last 13 road games. So how do I want to bet this? I'm going to take the Pacers to cover the first quarter spread. Big reason why the Knicks, awful starts. They're the worst first quarter bet in the NBA. 17-32 ATS overall, 7-16-1 ATS in the first quarter on the road. Pacers getting off to great starts at home here. All season long, they're 4th in first quarter net rating at home. They've scored 40 first quarter points in back-to-back games now at home. They're 5th in the NBA in first quarter point margin at home. And they shoot the ball much better at home, too. That's not much of a shock. A lot of teams are better at home, but they're number 3 in the NBA in EFG shooting percentage at home. So I'll take them to either have a tie or a lead at the end of the first quarter to cover that spread. John, anything on your radar betting-wise for this game?
Yeah, when I went through it, the total and the spread looked pretty what I thought it would be when I was doing this last night. The one that popped was Jalen Brunson immediately got posted at 29.5 points, and I was like, hey, that's pretty high for Jalen Brunson. Then I was Karl Anthony Towns out. Like I was going through the injury reports, didn't seem like that. I mean, they're on the front end of a back-to-back. There's nothing that indicates that. Then it immediately dropped down. It was like 20.5, 27.5. I think 27.5 is pretty closer to where it was. So I think I tweeted out that I liked Jalen Brunson 29.5, and I just deleted it because I was like, nobody's gonna be able to get this because within 2 minutes it moved 2 points down. So 29.5, I don't know what they were thinking with the opener there. It's down to 27. There is some 28.5 on the board, but it was like pretty heavily juiced, like minus 125. Had a price on minus 140, so not much of a gap there. I just the matchup you like is Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard should be on Jalen Brunson. That's kind of what I was looking at. That's why I like the under there.
Okay, next up, we are off to Chicago. The battle of the Central Division with the Pistons in town. It's kind of funny. I was kind of a bit behind on the NBA last week being in New Orleans, and it just kind of clicked for me this morning that Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan are teammates again. And wasn't that a bit of an issue, those two playing together the past couple seasons in the Bulls? Like they weren't really a good fit. Now they're back on the same team randomly again with the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, it didn't work. So I don't know. I don't know what the Sacramento Kings to me, they're just doing that fun thing of like staying relevant. Like we had really bad years for for a really long time. So, I mean, they're a fun, like I enjoy watching the Kings, like league pass wise, they're a great team. Like Malik Young, Zach LaVine, all this offensive firepower in terms of like winning anything of significance. Probably not going to happen, but I mean, it's a fun team to watch. I think they took out the Mavs yesterday in overtime. So yeah, it was really weird. It's like DeRozan. If I like part of DeRozan's departure was to kind of get away from Zach LaVine, and then they bring in Zach LaVine.
You must have been like, what the fuck? They're like, we're getting LaVine for Fox? Okay, so let's touch on this game here. So the Bulls have really had the Pistons number here over the past couple seasons. I know the Pistons are better this season, but the Bulls are 17-3 straight up in their last 20 against the Pistons, 8-1 straight up when they come to Chicago. They played on February 2nd. The Bulls won that game 127-119. Now, the Bulls are a 4.5-point underdog. I probably should have mentioned that. Total on the high end, 237. We each have a player prop for this one. Why don't you get us started, John? You like Kobe White?
Yeah, I went Kobe White under 20 and a
Or
half.
you don't like Kobe White?
Don't like Kobe White tonight. Some unders, a lot of unders. So it's a weird spot. I mostly I try to give like what I think are the best overplays because I feel like that's what people are looking for when you tune into these shows and stuff. But every single team's on a front end of a back-to-back today in the NBA because they all play tomorrow. So from like an over, like you need high minutes to go over totals, and you're kind of nervous that those minutes get dialed back just a little bit because everyone's on the front of the back-to-back. So for Kobe White, what drew me to this one is obviously the spot in the schedule, but it's the fact that Zach LaVine, we're just talking about, he's in Sacramento. So now like you are the focal point of this defense. And if you were playing the Pistons a month ago, Asar Thompson is, both of the Thompson twins are, if they ever get on the same team, that's going to be the most elite perimeter defense you've ever seen. Asar Thompson's elite perimeter defender. But if this matchup was a month ago, he's probably on Zach LaVine. Well, tonight he's probably on Kobe White. So that's why I do like this. I think the 20 and a half, just slightly too high, not too much. I just feel like there's other defenders that the Bulls will want to attack. Like I'm talking like Asar Thompson is like elite of the elite. So it's not really someone you want to keep going at in a matchup. So I feel like the usage might just swing a little bit towards someone else and it'd be on the front and the back of the back. Those minutes could be dialed back just a little bit. So going under on Kobe White.
Yes, the Detroit Pistons, we got to give them credit here. I mean, they were awful. Like the last 5 seasons. Now we have them here. If the season ended today, they would be in the playoffs. Never mind the play-in. They're 6th in the Eastern Conference right now at 27 and 26. So you got to commend them. I mean, they had Monty Williams signed to a 5-year contract, and they fired him a year into it.
A year.
You see, teams do that, and it works out for a lot of teams when they do this. It's like, holy shit, you gave them all that money, and you might as well just rip the Band-Aid, because how many times do we see these teams hang on to these head coaches forever, regardless of the sports league, and it just tanks the team. So good on the Pistons. Are they getting good buzz here? I know you're in tune with the Detroit sports scene. Is there a little bit of excitement about the Pistons now that the Lions are out of things, or now that the NFL season's over?
Yeah. There's a lot of excitement because, I mean, they have been, like you said, they haven't been relevant at all. Like, you're not even competing for a play-in spot, and now they're in the playoffs, and Cade Cunningham is looking like the number 1 pick that they drafted and paid him to be. Like, he looks like a 1A superstar. You got to give props, like you said, to the owner. I think it's really easy to just not acknowledge that mistake with Monty Williams and just keep it going because you paid him so much money, but to just eat all that money and try to fix it. I was really happy at the trade deadline because they were kind of talking about, they're obviously not going to win the NBA Finals or anything like that, but Malik Beasley's on a great contract, great shooter. Teams wanted him. Tim Hardaway Jr., expiring deal. They could have probably sold these pieces. I'm so happy that they decided to keep it together and let's just make the playoffs. We got it.
A major win for this team.
Right, exactly. We got it. At some point, you can't just keep losing and losing and losing. Yes, you're not going to win the NBA Finals. You don't have the perfect roster, but get into the playoffs and do something. Of maybe you. It kind of reminds me of the Magic last year. It's maybe you take a team to 7 in the first round, and that would be a huge win for them. So, yeah, it's exciting times for their win total. Joe was 21.5. They're way. That's what it was way back in the summer.
Not even the All-Star break yet. Congrats to Pistons over bettors. Okay, I have a best bet for this game, so we're going to try to mix in taking some swings. We have different categories of bets. Best bets, which are your traditional, minus 110, minus 105, minus 120. And then we're going to have best big money bets. So we're going to try to mix in more big money bets on the show here. My big money bet for today, I'm going to take Josh Giddey to have 20 or more points. And this one's going off at plus 310 odds. So I think he's really benefiting from Zach LaVine's departure. Shot attempts are way up in February. He's averaging 5 extra shots per game compared to January. He's averaging 18.5 points per game in February compared to just 10.1 in January. So he's really taking advantage of his new situation. He just played the Pistons on February 2nd. He dropped 20 points in them. He tied a season high with 17 shot attempts in that game. And we got a really high total here. 2 fast-paced teams are going to be zipping up and down the court. That should create extra opportunities for each team. Hopefully extra opportunities for Giddey. So we'll take him a little bit of a swing there. 20 or more points plus 310 odds. Okay. We go to the West Coast. We're going to talk a little bit Phoenix Suns after we give out our bets. We have 4 bets for this Grizzlies Suns game. Suns are a 3.5-point underdog at home. Really high total, 244.5. You have 2 player props. I have a spread. You have a same game parlay. So let's start with your first player prop, Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Kevin Durant under 26.5 points. Again, it's not like, I mean, you're gonna have to sweat this. It could be 25. Just think it's slightly too high. He's coming back from the ankle injury, and you're front end of a back-to-back. And he's someone who plays really high minutes, like 37, 38. So he's priced like that. So I just feel like when you're looking at this number, it's like, okay, even at like 36, 37 minutes, he had a slight edge to the under. And then you're coming back from injury. It's the front end of a back-to-back. Like, I just feel like those minutes won't, like, I would be really, really shocked if he gets into the 40s there. You would think it wouldn't be there. The other thing too, I really like, so when they played last time earlier in the year, he had 29 points. You won't like that if you see that. But the way the Grizzlies had to line up, they were missing like a lot of their 7-footers. So like Zach Edey, Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark. So Jaren Jackson Jr. was the center. So Jaren Jackson Jr. was guarding, I think at that time it would have been, I don't know if it was Nurkic, but I think it was maybe Plumlee. It wasn't Nick Richards, but he was guarding the center position. And then Jalen Wells was on Kevin Durant. Well, the way they line up tonight, Jaren Jackson Jr. should be able to guard Kevin Durant because they will have their centers in the game who will be guarding Nick Richards. And the Grizzlies have returned like Vince Williams and some other guys who are good defenders. So I just feel like the matchups kind of line up a little better. I think it's a little too high for the spot, so I went under on Kevin Durant.
Okay, next up, Tyus Jones. What are you looking at for him?
Yeah, so we actually gave this out. This is one of Adam's picks from the NBA Prop Pick show. So we're in line here. It's minus 110 now. It was kind of moving on us on the show. It might even be like minus 115, minus 120. So when you look at Tyus Jones, this is kind of like what we're breaking down the other show as well. Like I feel like the matchup with the Grizzlies, they're going to need more size because like I was just talking about with Durant, they have a bunch of 7-footers, and the Phoenix Suns, I feel like they could go like more like Royce O'Neal minutes, more Ryan Dunn minutes to kind of like match the size of the Grizzlies. And I feel like Tyus Jones would be the one who would be faded out because you just don't really need him. Like Devin Booker can all of a sudden be the primary point guard and stuff. And then when you also look at the Grizzlies matching up against the Suns, like Tyus Jones is not a good defender. Like Desmond Bane, John Morant could be attacking him over and over and over again. So like as a coach, that's a reason to like pull him from this lineup. And you're just like looking at his potential assists. He's like when Durant was out these last couple of games, he's only at 10 potential assists per game. So, yeah. I mean, 10, you got to convert 70% to get over. They usually convert like 50%. So, and when Durant was in before that, like a couple of games before that, he's only had 8 potential assists. You're basically saying like convert all of them. So I like the under on Tyus Jones.
Okay. If you guys follow our NBA coverage at all, you know, my favorite spot of the season has been the Memphis Grizzlies following a loss. What situation are they in tonight? They're coming off of a loss, so I'm going to back them here as a 3.5-point favorite. This is my spot, baby. Memphis is 13-3 ATS after a loss this season. They lost to the Thunder last time out. No shame in that. And they're really only losing to the best of the best lately. They're 12-3 in their last 15 games, with those losses coming to against OKC and at the Knicks and at the Rockets. Phoenix, meanwhile, they're on a 3-9 ATS slide as an underdog. This team does not play up to the competition. I know they got the big names, but the Phoenix Suns are not a good team. More on that here momentarily. And they get beat up by good teams. They've lost by 17 or more against the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Cavaliers over the last few weeks. And just a big statistical gap here for the Grizzlies. Now, I know KD's missed a couple games, but last 5 games, 6 versus 29th. In net rating here for Memphis. So I do like them to bounce back. It is my favorite spot of the NBA season. Okay, John, it is now time for your big money bet, a same game parlay for this game. What do you have cooked up?
It's funny. All our bets really sync up. Like we don't talk about these before. We just kind of go through the markets ourselves and they really all sync up here. But SGP, I'm going Grizzlies Suns, and I'm going to go with the Grizzlies on the money line. And I'm going to put John Morant 8+ assists, Jaren Jackson Jr. 25+ points. John Morant's Jaren Jackson Jr. is the player he converts most of his assists to. So those are obviously synced up. You just look at it from like a matchup on the Suns. It's like, I don't think the Suns have like a defender who can necessarily slow down Jaren Jackson Jr. And then John Morant, they don't have a perimeter. This is the problem with the Suns is they don't have defenders, right? So like John Morant, how are they going to keep him out of the lane? How are they going to stop him from creating? He'll probably have multiple dump offs to bigs around the rim for dunks and stuff like that. So it's not a great over day in the NBA just because of like the spot on the schedule for all of these teams. But I went with the Grizzlies here, and like these are obviously overs and stuff because they're the one team where they really keep the minutes of their starters low. So you're kind of, I feel like you're less vulnerable to like those minutes tanking on a front end of a back-to-back. And you actually probably maybe could even catch, like they priced John Morant like he's playing 30 minutes and he could play 31, he could play 32. That's not a big ask for anyone like that. So I feel like the Grizzlies are kind of the best team to kind of target from like that alternate over spot today, just because all their players are kind of priced like those minutes are already low. You're more concerned about like if you have a Durant who plays like, or like a Booker who plays like 39, 38 minutes, that drops to 30, like you're not going over any number. But so those are the alt overs there for the SGP for Suns Grizzlies.
Okay, so let's spend a minute talking about the Phoenix Suns. I think outside of the Philadelphia 76ers, the Suns have got to be the most disappointing team in the league. Both you and I really like them coming into the season. I remember that bet that you gave out who would have the most wins at the All-Star break. We're like, oh my, there must be a mistake on this number. Fantastic. It's not working out for the Phoenix Suns here, ladies and gentlemen. If the season ended today, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. They would not even be in the play-in, for God's sake. So it kind of reminds me, like a big theme that we talked about with the Milwaukee Bucks last season is that, hey, this team has made way too many moves in a short period of time. They're firing coaches, key pieces leaving, Drew Holiday, key pieces coming in, Damian Lillard, completely different games from the guys playing the point guard position for them. I don't know. Is it too simple to say that that's a similar story for the Phoenix Suns? You know, they make all these big moves, not a whole lot of depth. They're firing coaches, bringing new guys in. I expected a lot more out of this team. They've been a massive disappointment. The vibes aren't good. Kevin Durant was on the trade block, apparently. What do you make of the Suns here in this disappointing first half they've had?
Yeah, I was a believer for the Suns. I felt like at some point they'd figure it out. And the one thing you do like is, and it's played true, is like they have the most aggressive owner in the entire NBA. So like if they're struggling, they're going to make moves. But I mean, they're basically out of moves. You just look at their roster construction. I think you're kind of seeing it across multiple teams. It's really hard. Like basketball is all about fit, and I think it's really hard to not have like a clear pecking order and like roles and stuff. I think the Thunder is like the perfect example of like just elite roster construction where it's like it's very clearly SGA. SGA is on the ball. It is his team, and then Jalen Williams is like that second, and Chet Holmgren's the third on offense, and then you have defenders. Isaiah Hartenstein's just really good at setting screens and rebounding, and Lou Dort's a really good perimeter defender. I think they got too carried away with the superstar angle where it's like we have Devin Booker and then you bring in Kevin Durant, and that's already a little messy, right? Like, cause it's like two guys that need the ball. And then Bradley Beal was just like not the piece they needed. It needed to be like role players. And I think this is where the Lakers, when it's kind of like what I was watching last night, it's like, I don't know if Austin Reeves is the guy playing beside LeBron James and Luka, because you have like the same thing. It's like very two ball dominant guys. You almost just need like defenders and shooters and stuff. You need to figure out those roles. So I think it's just a roster construction thing. They don't have like the depth pieces around it to kind of complement those superstars. So I know you're gone, but like they tried to trade Kevin Durant, which is a whole other.
Didn't he block a move to the Golden State Warriors? Or
I don't think he can. I don't think he actually had he doesn't have a no trade clause. So at the end of the day, the Suns could have just been like send it, and they could have sent him to the Warriors, and there's nothing he could have done about it. But I think it was just like an act of good faith to keep him there. But now you've really now you've created this like weird scenario. Like you've really pissed off kind of a guy who wanted to retire on the Suns, and it's all because of Bradley Beal's no trade clause. He's the guy they want to get rid of. And isn't that weird? Like they really want you gone, and you're just like, no, I'm gonna stay. And like you kind of block moves. It's the whole locker room's weird there.
It's messed up. Kevin Durant, like I don't know if there's a superstar athlete in the history of sports that's mismanaged their career worse than KD. I mean, if you look at the moves he made, they backfire. I know, yes, he won championships in Golden State, but he doesn't really get a whole lot of credit for that, does he? Then he decides to hitch his wagon to Kyrie when Kyrie was the cancer of the league. And now he worked his way off that team to the Phoenix Suns. It's not working out. I don't know. I kind of looked at Devin Booker and I was like, something about him, it doesn't seem like he's as impactful this year, but his numbers aren't too far off. The shooting percentage dropped like 4%, but I don't know, over the course of a season, I suppose that that makes a difference. One thing, go ahead.
I was gonna say the one take, and I feel like you would agree with this. I forget who said it, but someone was talking about when the Warriors were trading for Kevin Durant, they felt like that was an opportunity for Kevin Durant to have like a home in the NBA. Because it's like the first time you were here, like you won championships, but like you kind of hitched your wagon to like Stephen Curry. But like now this time, like we need your help. Like you're helping us. Whereas more like they helped him win the first time. And they felt like that would finally give him like a home team because he doesn't really have like who's going to retire his jersey. And that was kind of like the pitch to Kevin Durant.
That's a good question. That's a really good question, actually.
Yeah, I guess that was the Warriors' pitch to Kevin Durant was like, if you come back here for a second run, like this is probably your team you retire with. We retire your jersey, you won type thing. And he was just like, no, I don't want to go to the Warriors. So
I suppose the Thunder probably would because I think he's the only Westbrook won an MVP with them as well. But he spent 8 years of his career there where he was, the second best player in the league to LeBron for that big chunk of time, got them to an NBA Finals. I don't know. He made his bed, though, so he does have to lie in it. Okay, John, a quick question here I want to throw at you, kind of related to the Luka stuff in the Dallas Mavericks, but this is a topic that comes up every once in a while. Would you rather your favorite team win a title and then miss the playoffs for the next 9 years or be a playoff team contending for 10 years but never win? So I think some relatable examples, not right on like miss the playoffs in 9 straight years, but like the Toronto Raptors, for example, they won the championship in 2019. They pretty much haven't been relevant since. I know they made the playoffs a couple years following, but they're one of the worst teams in the NBA right now. They got a little bit of direction. The New York Giants, maybe. I know they won 2, but they went from winning championships to being just a laughing stock, like one of the biggest embarrassments in the NFL. Or if you want to look at an example of a team, a contending team that never wins, a team like the Buffalo Bills or Baltimore Ravens, they keep you invested for the entirety of the season. They play in high-stakes games. They win high-stakes games in primetime during the regular season, but when it gets to the playoffs, they usually hit a wall. I would take my team winning a championship and then being awful for the next 9 years. There's nothing quite like being on that ride for a championship run. I do consider myself a Raptors fan, being a Canadian, so I did feel a little bit of connection, even though they do get criticized for that 2019 title. It's not their fault that Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson got injured. What would you choose?
This is tough. And I think it really relates to the Luka Doncic thing because it's like they didn't feel like they could win with him. And so they traded him to the Lakers because they don't think they can win a title with him. But if you're like a Mavericks fan, you're a season ticket holder, you probably would have been happy if you just the next 10 years you have Luka Doncic. He's fun to watch. It's an entertaining game. You're in the playoffs. You're relevant. All these things versus maybe one title with like even if we just give them a title with Anthony Davis and then they tank for 9 years. I don't know if that would be fun. It's funny because I think the 20-year-old version of me, and like if you go way back to have Tiger season tickets, so this question kind of like hits home a little differently. I would say to me, I would have sold my soul for a World Series and like sell the farm. I don't care what it is. I want to win a World Series, but like after watching like what that looked like the 6-7 years after that, where it's just like there's like people aren't going to games, nobody's in bars before, nobody's buying gear. Like there's that element of like, even if you're just competitive, it's like you go to games with your family, your friends, you're texting about who they might acquire at the deadline. Like there's vibes around it. I think I would take the 10 years of making the playoffs. I feel like 10 years ago, I would have taken the title, but as like someone who has like season tickets to a team, I'd rather them just be like, I'd rather go to Cleveland for an ALDS game and maybe they get eliminated. And then maybe next year go somewhere else with a buddy to, another ALCS game or just like be relevant. So I think that's kind of what the Mavericks fans are going through it right now.
I think you might have a point, like using the hypothetical situation in the NFL, for example. Say, for example, the Cleveland Browns won a Super Bowl 10 years ago, and the next 9 years looked a lot like how it's looked for them lately. Would you rather have that one Super Bowl than just being flat out pathetic and embarrassment at the top of the draft, whiffing, or what the Baltimore Ravens have gotten out of Lamar Jackson? double-digit wins all the time, a lot of big wins in the regular season, a lot of fun. You'll win a game or two in the playoffs, but that's it.
I think there's a big like social side to like rooting for a team, right? So like when your team's relevant, you can like you're texting with your friends, oh, should we go to this city to watch them play? Oh, maybe we'll catch them on like a road trip here, or like, are they going to make this move? Are they going to make this free agent signing? And when your team is bad, I'm talking bad, like the Tigers were bad, just like there's like nothing. You're like,
You're out. You're out.
Yeah, I haven't been into downtown Detroit having a beer in like 5 years because they're winning like 40 games. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know if trading, like if I was a Maverick season ticket holder, I feel like I would have just been happy, even if like Luka doesn't win anything. It's just like, hey, he retires a Maverick, one of the greatest ever. It was really fun to watch. I feel like that's the side I lean with.
Yeah, you might have a point, because I'm kind of like, I'm a Raptors fan, but I'm kind of out right now. Like, I'm not planning my night. Like, I'll get the alerts of when they win their games. And, I was kind of hoping that they were going to tank and not go the Brandon Ingram route. But I just don't have much interest. And it is fun when you have that interest in that team and you're keeping up with them day to day and you're watching a lot of their games.
Yeah.
But that 2019 championship was pretty cool. That people it's not their fault. KD and Klay Thompson went down. Pamela Silva, one of our female viewers in the live chat, says, I agree with John on the Mavs take. I prefer to stay relevant and be happy with the players rather than a championship and being awful for the next handful of years after winning that championship. That's why I say to New York Giants fans, it's like they pity themselves. They go on social media and say, guys, shut up. The majority of you guys got to witness your team beat Tom Brady and the Patriots twice, not once, twice in the Super Bowl. So you got to chill out. Like, I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan in hockey, and they're barely relevant anymore. Like, I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs last year, but it's like, you know what? I've gotten 3 Stanley Cups out of the Sidney Crosby and Malkin run. So I cannot complain whatsoever. But yeah,
I've also never seen any of my teams win a championship, so I don't really know what that feels like. So maybe that would swing my opinion, but yeah, I don't think so. I think I would just like the staying relevant part.
Okay, guys, wrapping up here, some housekeeping items. So the NBA is going on their All-Star break starting on Friday. They're going to have all the All-Star festivities, the game, the 3-point, the dunk competition. So John's going to be having a video with coverage of that from a betting perspective. That will probably come out on Friday, but the NBA is going to be off for a big chunk of next week. So we're going to take a little break as well. I'm headed down to the Dominican with my family. John's going on a little bit of a vacation as well, but we're going to be back tomorrow for another edition of Before You Bet. We'll do a deep dive on the NBA board once again. John's going to be back on Thursday with the NBA Prop Pick Show here on the YouTube channel. So you can get your NBA fix that way. So yeah, a little bit of a break just to line up with the NBA All-Star break, and then we'll be back. I think it's the 22nd or 23rd, whatever that following Monday is. Okay, to recap the bets here, if you missed the best bet segment, John went Kobe White under 20.5 points, Kevin Durant under 26.5 points, Tyus Jones under, big under night for John, 6.5 assists, and he has a same game parlay plus 570 for the Suns Grizzlies games. You can go back, rewind, and watch his breakdown of that to get that pick. For me, Raptors first half plus 5.5 points. Pacers first quarter plus 0.5 point. Josh Giddey, this is my swing of the night, 20 or more points plus 310. And the Grizzlies after a loss, my spot minus 3.5. Okay, that does it for today's show. Thank you to John for joining. 4 NBA games, and we're at the 39-minute mark of the show. A lot to talk about. So yeah, just because there's no NFL and college football doesn't mean we're going to be short on things to cover here on Before You Bet. So thank you to John for joining. Thank you to producer Mick, put together a great show for us today. Thank you to our sponsor, BetMGM. Make sure you check them out for all your sports betting needs. And thank you to all of our great viewers for tuning in tonight. Best luck with your bets. Enjoy the games, and we will catch you guys again tomorrow. Let's go, Grizzlies. Woo!